Thanks for listening to the Film Florida podcast. If you have a minute, please remember to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Thanks, and we appreciate your support. Welcome to the Film Florida podcast. My name is John Lux, and I'm the Executive Director of Film Florida. Today, our guest is Max Wyler from Accord Productions in Miami. Accord Productions has been involved in the industry for over 30 years, and today they're one of South Florida's top production companies. Thanks for joining us on the podcast today, Max.
Yeah, thank you, John. Very nice introduction. 30 years, wow. Makes me feel old.
Well, I like to start each one of our interviews with a little bit of backstory. So let's go back before the 30 years. How did you get your start in the industry?
My brother and I were partners in Accord Productions. We grew up with this stuff. Our father was a talent, and we were exposed to it a lot. We were dragged to sets when we were little and saw him fly off to sitcoms and things like that. And since we didn't have any talent, we had to figure out some other way to get in the business, so we went behind the cameras.
So let's talk a little bit about Accord Productions. You had mentioned that your father was involved. Tell us a little bit about how the company got started.
Well, I mean, Accord wasn't related to our father or anything. He had a company called Adco Productions.
Okay.
And we did a lot of work. We gripped when we were youngsters, followed him onto sets when he worked at different TV stations or sitcoms or things like that. Accord happened when Rocky and I were working with another company, and we got fired. And Accord happened the next day. It was very interesting.
So I know Accord Productions is a production company, but of course the definition of what a production company has changed over the last decade or so. So how do you describe the company?
Yeah, I mean, we get pigeonholed into a lot of things as far as services, but we're in three different distinct businesses, but they all relate to the production business.
And what are the three different parts?
Well, the three that we do, or what we're involved in, and I think all relate are, first, we produce shows from the beginning, the creative process, all the way to the end. Second, we provide a lot of technical support for other producers who produce shows, where we supply camera people, equipment, logistics help, post-production, even deliverables and things to networks, which can be confusing to smaller producers. And then finally, we do a lot of unique services as far as a lot of archival stuff, bringing old tape D1 from D1 to VHS back into a digital environment, closed captioning, and also digital asset management, which is very popular.
So some might say that it's better to pick one of those things and specialize on it. You obviously believe otherwise and believe the benefits to the company are to be more well-rounded. So talk about the philosophy that you guys have of being able to handle all those different aspects as opposed to just picking one thing.
Well, I mean, the industry, as you know, has changed a lot, and it's done a full circle in our opinion. There used to be these big production houses, and then as post-production things got cheaper, people migrated to their houses, and now, I mean, a lot of the shows and stuff are done in a freelance model. We wanted to develop something that would support an overhead, that would support a creative environment, and that involves a constant income stream from these three different business models that we have. And it's allowed us to keep a full staff year-round to produce things.
Now, you had mentioned how the industry has changed, whether it's production or post-production. The last decade plus has seen changes in the industry. Many things are smaller and more economical, which of course has its pros and cons where, everyone is a producer, everyone's a DP, everyone's an editor now, and in a way that almost undervalues what seasoned professionals like you do. Talk about how you communicate with clients that believe they're experts or their son is an expert in what they do as opposed to why they need your expertise.
John, that's a great question. And I have this conversation with producers in our industry all the time where they think that they're being replaced by someone's uncle or something like that. And I think it's more of a confidence problem that a lot of creative people have. What we do, and especially the experienced producers, is very unique, and the good ones are needed. I've been on sets where an inexperienced producer is trying to pull things off, and it's just not as clean, it's not as well done, and a good producer is worth their money. That's the best thing that I can say.
So let's talk a little bit on the technical side for a couple minutes. On the traditional production side, what advancement has been the most meaningful to Accord Productions in the last, say, 20 years?
I mean, the first thing overall is just the reliability of equipment in general. From my seat, producer standpoint, I mean, I remember the number one thing that we always had to worry about was whether the stuff would work. Monitors, cameras, lighting, and then the second thing is just the size and the ability to move quicker. Now, I mean, lighting, to me, I love the advancement in lighting. No more cords, the gel setups and all that stuff. You can just turn a dial now to match different color lighting and things. We can do more dramatic lighting stuff quicker. I love it. The lighting thing would be my favorite. I'm sure the more technical geek guys have more camera technology and stuff that they'd point to, but to me, the lighting technology is the big one.
Sure. Now, let's talk a little bit on the post-production side of things. The advances in both hardware and software have been huge. Is there something that you're using today that you just can't imagine living without, but it wasn't even around 10 or 15 years ago?
The biggest thing, I find it amazing. I use my phone on sets everywhere. I take my notes from the set, and I'll send them straight to post-production, and it'll have time code numbers and everything on there, all from my phone. And I can even send pictures and things of the specific setups. Couldn't even think of that 15 years ago.
Now, if I read correctly, you guys use Final Cut, Avid, as well as Adobe Premiere. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Talk about that a little bit, because I know, again, a lot of people kind of pigeonhole themselves into one versus the other, but you guys have the flexibility of all three. Talk about how that's an advantage.
Since we do have a legacy in the business, we've always been sensitive to other people's demands. I mean, we can't make a call like, oh, we're going to be an Avid place or something else. The pure post-production model has gone away, but we still deal with producers who they prefer Avid or they prefer Final Cut or they prefer Premiere. So depending on the project and who we're working with, we can meet any of those demands. And everybody has their pluses and minuses on them. I like them all. I think they're all great.
And do your editors that you have on the team, are they flexible enough where they can work on all three platforms?
Well, we have 9 editors on staff, and of those, 4 are fluent in all 3.
Okay. So in your time at Accord Productions, do you have a favorite project that you've worked on, and why?
The thing what I get after being in this for quite a while, I mean, business-wise and all, it's great to be successful in that, but it's really cool to start a project from a blank sheet of paper and have an idea and have characters and everything else, and then become a highly rated show. And the one that fits best into that is a show that we did called South Beach Classics. It was something that was done originally by a British production company, and it failed. And we felt that we could remold it and make it successful, and we did. It became the number one rated show on Velocity for quite a while, and now the 4 seasons that were done are very successful on Amazon.
Now, talk about a little bit about some of the other titles or series that people might recognize that you guys have worked on.
We're going into season 3 on It's How You Get There. It's a History Channel show. It's in the car block. We've got 3 great characters in that, and they will basically ride anything with a motor, and they go from point A to point B in these particular items. In the past, it's ranged from ATVs all the way up to 18-wheelers in Utah. So very interesting show. We have a Science Channel show called Tomorrow's World Today, which is a great show to produce. From a producer standpoint, you couldn't ask for a better show. You go around the world seeking out innovation in all kinds of areas. We just finished recently innovation in bananas. Who could imagine?
Now, you guys are based in Miami, but you work all over the world. Talk about being the pros and cons of being based in Miami? Obviously more pros, but talk a little bit about the location.
Well, first, you're very dependent on American Airlines. That's a good or bad thing depending on where you go, because I guess 70% of the traffic at Miami International is American Airlines. So we have a love-hate relationship with American. We love them when they get us to places, and we don't when they get us there late. But most of the time they do a good job. In all seriousness, we got crews all over. I mean, we have a crew in Indonesia right now, crews up fighting the snow and stuff up north. It's a challenge, but we're very good at it. Our support staff and all can get people down to South America or the islands or something else very quickly. We have good relationships with most of the film people and film bureaus and the permit people in the countries and all that stuff. And we go to them enough times. We know most of the people. So we're a good resource for people when they're going out of country.
And you've mentioned your team a couple times and the different staff you have. How many people do you have on your team?
Well, I mean, our core is 37.
Okay.
It's interesting. We have a fraternity of crew that have worked here as a core in the past, but they've gone on to the freelance market, and we use them a lot too. They know our system, and they fit in well, and to us, they're all accordions. Once they've been here for a little bit and been hit by the bug, we call them accordions, and they fit.
Now, you guys are a bit different in terms of the model. You had mentioned earlier there's a lot of freelance people, a lot of independent contractors. What do you attribute your ability to stay with a larger team for our industry here in the state of Florida that has been able to sustain and survive and be so successful?
The first thing that's very different on our approach is we approach it as a business first. I mean, we love the creative and all that, and we're surrounded by creatives, but we don't go into a project unless it makes business sense. And we set up our business models to make business sense. We love doing creative projects, but if it doesn't have a profit on the end of it, we're not doing it.
So, Max, we've talked about some of the projects that people have seen and the work that you have currently going on, but what do you have in development that we may be seeing in the months ahead?
Well, you never know with network executives, but we have some exciting ones, what I think that people should be seeing shortly and what we will be producing. One, we have a contract to do the reality show take on a dog that has inherited $400 million. That's Gunther, the $400 million dog, which from a producer standpoint, it's got 1 million storylines. This dog owns a jet, owns real estate all over the world, including Madonna's house in South Florida. And the storylines are endless, in my opinion. We have a show that we've pitched to the Discovery family called Long Way Home with Jake and Jackie Long. It's a house flipping show. And just working with Jackie and Jake, they're real down-to-earth people who are into the whole flipping thing and the design thing. Jackie's got a great eye for design, and Jake is 6'7" and 325 pounds, so the whole look and feel of the thing's a little different, and I like that. And then we have a show called Dope Medicine, which is an urban doctor in Liberty City who is a cardiologist and goes through the challenges of urban medicine, and he also has a music studio that he helps inner city kids and stuff do creative things. So those are 3 of the ones what we're excited on, but we get pitched stuff all the time. Since we have quite a few shows on the networks, we get pitched some great stuff and we get pitched some not so great stuff, but the networks are looking for bigger than life. And those are the ones what I love to hear about.
Well, those 3 shows sound a lot of fun, and we will hopefully see those in the near future as we're watching for new shows that are coming out.
So, John, I also want to thank you and Film Florida for all the great things that you all do for our industry.
We appreciate that, and we appreciate you being a member and supporting the organization as well. Thank you for that. That's it for this episode of the Film Florida podcast. Thanks to Max Wyler for joining us, and thank you for listening. To learn more about Accord Productions, visit accordproductions.com. That's accordproductions.com For more information about Film Florida, go to filmflorida.org or visit our social media pages on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast.